Hi everyone, it's Sorkin. Today we are going to solve LeetCode minimum area rectangle problem. So the problem is that we are given an input array of points which represents x and y. For example, in this case we are given 1 and 1, 1 and 3 and so on. And we need to find 4 points. We need to find that forms a minimum, that rectangle with the minimum area. For example, in this case, we are given 5 input points, and these 4 points forms for us the rectangle with the minimum area, because with any other combination we cannot make a rectangle. So how we are going to solve this problem? Let's just take another example. Let's say that in this case we have 1 point here and another point, let's say that we have here, right? 2 random point. What's the input for that? So x1, let's call it, and y1, and for this one let's call it x2 and y2. So first thing that these two, x1 should not be equal to x2, x1 should not be equal to x2, right? And y1 should not be equal to y2. So how about the other points? In order for us to form a rectangle, we need to know these points also should exist in our array, right? So can we say that can we predict what are the coordinates of these 2 points? Yes, we can, because for this point it's what? For this point it is x1 and y2, so x1 and y2, right? And for this one it is x2 and y1. So this is the rectangle, okay? This is the rectangle, and that's exactly how we're going to solve this problem. First thing that we are going to do, we are going to create a data structure. In our case, we are going to create a set where we are going to store the values of the x and y in the string in the comma separated manner. So x and y we are going to set in our set. So we are going to, all the values that we have, we are going to store in the set. Then we are going to take any two numbers that are not equal to each other. So they are on opposite directions, or in any other directions they are not near to each other. For example, in this case, x1 and the x1, y1 and x2 and y2. So we are taking those values. Then we are looking in our set. Is there x1 and is x1 and the y2 exist in our, because search would be constant in that case, is the x1 and the y2 exist in our set? If yes, this one exists and also this one exists, we are calculating the area of this rectangle and we are maintaining our result, which is going to be the area of our rectangle. So as we are going through our array, we are finding for each combination, we are going to find a rectangle, and we are going to calculate the area of that rectangle, and if that is less than the result that we had earlier, we are going to set that we are going to have to update our result. Okay, first thing that we are going to do, we are going to create a set of strings. Let's just call it a set and a new hash set. Okay, and we are going to add to our set our coordinates x and y with the comma separation. So in our case, let's just go over our points, which is our coordinates, right? And we are taking those and we are adding to our set. Let's add it. So point 0, and let's just add here comma, and we are going to add point 1, right? So now we added to our set all our x and y coordinates with the comma separation. Now let's just define our minimum area. So mean area, and it's gonna be equal. So for now, let's just set that to max value. We are going to update it. So max value. Okay, and we are going to return that at the end. So for now, just let's go over our points and define the 2 points where x and y is not equal. So we are doing exactly that right now here. So int I is so we are taking the points length and I, and we can copy paste this for loop here, and we can copy paste this for loop here. The next one, let's call j, and the j is equals to I plus 1, right? And it's, let's put here j plus, for every point, what we do, we are taking the x and y. So for example, in our case, let's take the first one is, let's take that int, let's call it just the x1, right? It's gonna be equal to points I and 0, right? So I and 0, we are taking the x1. The same way we are gonna take the, let's just copy that 4 times. So we are gonna take y1, and we are going to take x2, and we are going to take y2, right? And we are going to take y2. So the values for that is gonna be I and 0, I and 1 for the y1, right? And the same way it's gonna be j0 and j1. Okay, so now we have 2 different points, x and y, from the from 2 coordinates we have. Now we need to check that if the x is not equal to x and the y is not equals to y. So if our x1 is not equal to x2, right? And our y1 is not equal to our y2. So in that case, what we are going to do, now we know that they are in 2 completely different, the coordinates that does not have any, so they don't have any intersection, so they are completely opposite in diagonal positions. So now we need to find 2 other points which can make to our rectangle. So we need to find that the 2 other points. For that, we are going to just check in our set that the those exist in our set. So for that, we are going to check that if our set contains, right, if it contains x1, right, x1 and x1 plus comma and plus y2, right, y2, and it should contain that. So this is our 3rd coordinate, and we need to also find another coordinate. So for that, our last coordinate should be set contains x2 and y1, right? If that is the case, then in that case, we are going to recalculate our minimum area, right? So we are going to our minimum area. We are going to take the minimum of whether it's the existing one or the one that we just calculated, because we found another rectangle which we are going to compare. So okay, we need to take the minimum area, right? And the other one, we need to take the x1 minus x2, or vice versa. So for that, we are just going to take the absolute value multiplied, right? Multiplied by, we can just copy paste and copy paste, and the y1 and the y2. That's it. At the end, when we exit this loop, what we are going to do, we are going to return our value. But before returning, so there might be a case when we couldn't find any rectangle. So in that case, our value still will be maximum value. So we are going to check that if our value is still minimum area, if it still equals to our max value, then in that case we are returning 0. Otherwise we are going to return our minimum area. Okay, let's run it. Okay, plus, and the same here. Less than, and the j is less than. J is less than. Let's run one more time. Minimum. Okay. All right. Okay, it works as expected. Let's go over our solution one more time. So what we do, we need to find the rectangle. So rectangle with the minimum area. So for that, what we are going to do, we are going to go over all our points on the coordinates, and we are going to add them as a comma separated value x and y into our set. Then we are going to iterate over our points one more time and try to find 2 points that are not equal, where x is not equal to x and y is not equals to y, which means that they are positions diagonally. So it means that if we are going to find x1 and the y, so in order to make those 2 diagonals in a rectangle, we need to find 2 more points that are located on the opposite side. And for that, we are trying to check that if we have in our set x1 and the y2, or we have x2 and the y1, if both of these cases are true, which means that we found all 4 points from which we can make a rectangle, right? So now we are checking that we are checking our area of our rectangle here, and we are taking the whatever is the minimum so let's say that we found the rectangle earlier. We are checking that whether it's low, the value of that is lower than the one that we have right now or higher, and we are taking the minimum. At the end, we are checking if we did not find any rectangle, then we are returning 0. So if we find, we are returning the minimum value. So what's the time and space complexity for this case? This time complexity is that we have 2 for loops, 4 and 4. So that's why our complexity in this case is gonna be n square, right? So it's going to be n square. So about the space complexity, we are using a set where we are adding all our points, so which means that our time complexity in this case is going to be of n. Okay, this is our solution. Hope you like it. If you like my content, please hit the like button and subscribe my channel. See you next time. Bye.